And welcome to Technology Tap. I'm Professor JRod. In this episode, we're going to talk about RAID, and it's not the roach spray. It's RAID that you use in a computer system. We're going to talk about why we use RAIDs, the different kind of RAIDs, and we're going to do a little troubleshooting on them too. Let's get to it. All right, and welcome back. Before we start, I want to do a little bit of house cleaning, or as they say. First, I want to thank all the fans who are listening. I got people listening in Australia. I want to say hi to my new friend there. And I have people listening in England, France, Greece, Turkey, Israel. And I have to say, I'm so honored that you took time out to listen to my podcast. I thank you very, very much. And of course, to all my students who listen to my podcast, I really, really, truly appreciate you guys taking your time out and listening to my podcast. All right. Just remember, guys, I'm going to ask a question at the towards the end of the podcast to give you the opportunity to win a prize. So make sure you listen to it into the end, so that way you can email me with the correct answer. That way I can send you your prize. And if you're international, um, you could still join in. We'll figure out how to get you a prize. All right. On this episode, we're going to talk about RAID. And RAID is a redundant array of independent disk, which it combines identical hard drives to either increase performance, data protection, or both. It could be hardware RAID, which can be built on the motherboard, or it can be added using a RAID controller that can be installed to an expansion slot, or it could be software RAID. Windows has the ability for you to do RAID on Windows. All versions of Windows have that ability. Now, there's many, many different types of RAID, but the CompTIA exam really concentrates on 6, and those are the ones that we're going to talk about today. The first one is RAID 0, which is striping. RAID 0, well, before we get there, let me just lay it out in basic term what a RAID is. RAID is 2 more physical hard drives that logically act like one big hard drive, in a sense. So that's just for that. You can think about it like, well, what's a RAID? What's a RAID? That's what it is. It's 2 or more hard drives that act like one big physical hard drive. They could act really like more hard drives, but just to make it simpler, it's 2 or more physical hard drives that logically act like one. All right. The first RAID we're going to talk about is RAID 0, which combines multiple physical disks into a single logical disk. It accesses file data across both disks simultaneously, which is how it gains performance. What's the advantage of a RAID 0? Well, faster read and write times, and then only 2 drives are required, but more are supported. What's the disadvantage? There is no data protection. If a single drive fails, all data is lost. There is no redundancy. And the only way to recover the data is from your backup. So if you have absolutely no backup, you're out of luck. Now, who likes this setup? Who do you think likes this kind of setup? I'll give you a moment to think about it. It's gamers. Why? Because since both hard drives are sharing the load, it runs faster. And gamers are always looking for that edge, that one edge they could do to make their computer faster. Next, we're going to talk about RAID 1, mirroring and duplexing. RAID 1 provides data protection by actively storing the same data on both disks simultaneously. What's the advantage? Data protection. If one drive dies, there is no data loss. It requires only two drives. But what's the disadvantage? Well, only half the storage is usable. So you're buying two hard drives, but you're only using one, and the other one is just in case. It's limited to only two disks. You can't make it any bigger than that. People who like RAID 1 are Soho users, small office, home office users are the ones that really like RAID 1. RAID 5 is disk stripping with distributed parity. RAID 5 combines multiple hard drives into a single logical disk with parity data striped across all disks. What's the advantage? Data protection. If one drive fails, there is no data loss. Supports more than two drives to get more capacity than a RAID 1. What's the disadvantage? Well, it requires at least three drives to start, so you got to spend a little bit of money there. And the other disadvantage, slow recovery time, since recovering data from parity is an intensive process. Now, I know one of the questions that you're going to have is what is parity? But parity, we're not going to talk about that in this episode because it's just, it takes too long to explain it. And I want to leave it for a future episode. So, RAID 5 is usually for businesses. Most businesses use a RAID 5. When I was working in the business world, we used a RAID 5 where I was at. RAID 6 is disk stripping with extra parity. RAID 6 combines multiple hard drives to increase performance and provide data protection. What's the advantage of a RAID 6? Data protection. This time, if two drives fail, there is no data loss. Supports more than two drives to get more capacity than a RAID 1. This one goes up to RAID 4. What's the disadvantage? Well, it requires four drives to start, so you got to spend a little bit of money there. And slow recovery time, since recovering data from parity is an intensive process. RAID 6 is also used in a business environment. Next one we're going to talk about is RAID 10 or RAID 1 plus 0, where it combines RAID 1 arrays into a RAID 0. So think of it. It's a RAID, two RAID 1s inside of a RAID 0. So what's the advantage? Data protection. If two or sometimes more drives fail, there is no data loss. Provides faster performance, faster recovery time compared to parity-based RAID. Supports more than two drives to get more capacity than a RAID 1. So think of it like this. You have a RAID 0, and then underneath that, you have two RAID 1. So one of them will be this 0 and this 1, and the other one will be this 2 and this 3. And you have this 0 and this 1 sharing, not sharing the same load, copying, right? This 1 is copying whatever this 0 is doing, and this 3 is copying everything that this 2 is doing. But this 0 and this 2 are sharing the load. I know it's a little bit confusing, so you might want to draw it out. So it's a RAID 0, two RAID 1s inside of a RAID 0, which what makes a RAID 10. Disadvantage requires 4 drives to start. Again, it takes a little bit of money that you need to spend, and only half the storage is usable since the other half is duplicating your data. Now, which drives can fail? Well, if disk 0 and disk 1 fails, then your RAID is toast because they're the same one and they're RAID 0. Again, like I said, RAID 1 is copying everything from RAID 0. So if you lose both those drives, you're out of business. But you can lose RAID disk 0 and disk 2 because disk 1 and disk 3 are its backup. A RAID 0 plus 1, if you think about it, right? It's 2 RAID zeros inside of a RAID 1. It combines multiple RAID 0 RAIDs into a RAID 1, and it has the same advantage and disadvantage of a RAID 10, which is data protection. If 2 or sometimes more drives fail, there is no data loss, provides faster performance, faster recovery time compared to parity base RAID, and supports more than 2 drives to get more capacity than a RAID 1. And the disadvantage is requires 4 drives to start. Only half the storage is usable since the other half is duplicate. Now, our RAID 10 is ideal for production and hosting servers because of the way it performs and its security. Uh, this is not, it's expensive to do a RAID 10 or a RAID 0 plus 1, but it makes up, it's worth it because of its performance and fault tolerance. It works really well for database servers as well as production and hosting servers. When you, and this is the example in a RAID 5 or RAID 6, when you lose one of the drives, when one of the drives fails, that drive goes into what they call degraded mode. And the other 2 drives or 3 drives picks up the slack. But you will see a significant performance hit in your network if one of your drive dies. So you'll notice that there's something's wrong. The good news is these drives are what they call hot swappable, which means you can replace them on the fly. So if you have an extra hard drive, you can go to the drive that's dead, pull it out, put the new one in, and rebuild the drive. You can do that while people are working. Now, in CompTIA, they'll tell you do it when you have downtime. And most of us who work, downtime is usually after work or on the weekends, depending on when they will let you do it. But if you see that one of your drives dies on Tuesday, are you going to wait till Saturday to replace it? Because if you have a RAID 5 and one of them dies, you're out of business, right? You have to restore from tape. So if you, my recommendation would be to swap it immediately. But on the CompTIA exam, they want you to wait until there is downtime, and that's when you do it. But my recommendation, personally, in the real world, is to change it right away. Because if the other one dies, if one of the other one dies, if you have a RAID 5, then you're out of business. You're out of business. All right, let's take a look at a typical CompTIA question that they might give you in the exam. Here it is. 2 drives in a RAID 5 have failed. Which of the following would the technician need to implement? A. Replace the failed drives and restore the data from backup to the RAID. B. Replace one of the failed drives and run the RAID repair. C. Replace the failed drives and format the RAID using the quick option. Or D. Replace one of the failed drives and repair the RAID using the system utility. All right, I'll give you 10 seconds to think what the answer is? And the answer is A. Replace the failed drive and restore the data from backup to the RAID. Now, you're thinking, well, wait a minute. I thought you can just swap it out. Remember, this is a RAID 5. So a RAID 5, only one drive could fail. If two drives fail, you have to restore from tape. That's the answer. The answer is A. Again, anybody who's taking a CompTIA class, you know they ask the questions are very tricky. You absolutely need to study and actually need to read the question. I think that's one of the most important aspects of taking this exam is to actually read the question, not skim over it. You actually have to read it. So for RAID 0, if a RAID stops working, for RAID 0, replace any degraded disk, recreate the array, and you have to recover data from backup on a RAID 0. For RAID 1 or RAID 10 or RAID 0 plus 1, if the RAID stops working or you notice that you have a degraded disk, replaces the degraded disk, remirror the drive during scheduled downtime, according to CompTIA, and a RAID 5 and a RAID 6. If you notice that one of the drives is down, replace the degraded disk, rebuild the array during scheduled downtime. If you cannot find any of the drives at the RAID at all, this could be a number of reasons why, and you have to follow your troubleshooting methodology. You have to check the cables, power, controller, configurations, check drive compatibility, and in the worst case scenario, guys, you're gonna have to restore from tape. So it is vital, and I'm gonna do an episode on backup, but man, it is vital that you always have a backup. Make sure that your backup runs. It's very critical, especially if you have a RAID. All right, I think that covers it, right? A quick introduction into RAID. I know a lot of my students this past week had questions on RAID, so I made this particular episode on RAID in order for them, hopefully they could be able to listen to this and re-listen to this, have a better understanding about RAID. All right, now I'm going to give you a question. All right, here is the question. Now, it's a two-part question. So in order for you to win the prize, you have to answer both questions correctly. All right, here's the question. Which is the best RAID level for performance, and which one is the best for redundancy? The first two people who email me the right answer at ProfessorJRod@gmail.com, you will win a prize. So to all my fans out there, good luck. All right, and that's going to be it for me today on this episode. I want to thank everyone for listening. And like I said, wear masks, stay safe, and be nice to each other. This has been a presentation of Little Chacha Productions, art by Sarah and music by Jacob Shore. And we will see you on the next episode of Technology Tap.